Do we have all systems clear? Okay. Thank you. Good evening, good night. Hello. I'm Floyd Hall. Thank y'all for coming out this evening. This is Night of Ideas, as you all already know, but we thank you for your time to show up to this event and for this conversation in particular. My role in this evening, just a bit of housekeeping. I serve as the co-curator and creative producer for Science Gallery Atlanta. And so as you see this work here and these banners here, Science Gallery Atlanta is a new initiative of Emory University that's a public-facing initiative that's at the intersection of art, science, design, culture, research, all of those amazing things. And today was the first public day of our exhibition, of our opening space. And so it's been a very busy day for all of us, welcoming the public to our space. It's over at Pullman Yards. And I have the distinct pleasure of shouting out the artist who created this work. This is the scale model. So this is the small version of what's actually in our gallery. And Marina Sky, who is over there, you have seen her work at the Trap Music Museum. You've seen her work if you've seen Jadena on tour, if you've seen Wale on tour. She is just a really well-respected, talented, creative Atlantan at this point, although she's not from Atlanta, but we're gonna claim her at this point because she's helping us advance what we're doing here. And so this is a bit of a performance/improv moment. You see people at the table. A good bit of you all have cards. Some of those cards say 3,000. Some of those cards say big boy. And what that means is at the appointed time, the folks at this table will get up and other folks will come to the table and bring their own ideas to what we've already discussed. So this is the foundation of what's going to happen. These folks here are the foundation of Atlanta in many ways, and so they're going to provide the foundation for this conversation, and then we're going to iterate and allow people to join into that conversation. And so if you do not want to talk, if you know for a fact that you do not want to talk, pass your card to someone else. So I would say if you do not have a card and you want to talk, raise your hand. Okay. Make the appropriate trend.
There's some cards over there. There's some hands raised over there. Okay.
Testing. Okay, yeah. Let's get organized. So, with that being said, we had the housekeeping out of the way. Imani's going to let me know when it's time to make that transition. And then we will allow the folks at the table to find their own seats, and then other folks will come to the table. And so, as we start this conversation around culture, right? This is a very ubiquitous word right now. What is culture, and how does that have an impact and relate to Atlanta, our identity, the values that we have, the influence that we believe we have in a larger sphere? So, when we talk about the culture of Atlanta, that begins somewhere. So as we think about where that somewhere is, I want to do a bit of an introduction here at this table. And I would love for everyone at the table to say their name and a one-sentence bio. Not a run-on sentence, a direct sentence, a directive. So a one-sentence bio of your name. What is your bio? And if you're from Atlanta, you can even say what side of town you grew up on, if you really want to go and just be, if you want to just represent. So we'll start with Kalundra, who is right here in front of me.
All right. This is not on.
Can we hear her?
Nope. What?
This is on. Oh.
Okay. It's not. We'll try again. Is it happening? Is it okay, here we go.
Happening.
There we are. Yay! How do microphones work? My name is Kalundra Smith. I'm from Stone Mountain, Georgia, and I am a theater critic, playwright, and journalist here in Atlanta. I've been covering the city for about 10 years.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Lily Madali, aka DJ Lily Smalls, born and raised in Atlanta, and IT by day, DJ by weekend, and I'm happy to be here.
Hello.
One sentence.
My name is Bame Joyner. I'm a diplomat of the West End community. We're representing this roundtable at the council. Product of Atlanta Public Schools, co-founder of Atlanta Influences Everything, and I'm a graduate of North Atlanta, class of '97. We got some diplomatic issues at the council. Hold on one second.
Can we get someone to come work out what we're doing at this table as far as the microphones? One of the folks in the back.
I don't want to test it. I do.
My name is Kirsten Daniel. I am born and raised. I'm from the west side of Atlanta. I've worked in the music space for 15 years. I own a brand called ATL, and I'm the trademark holder of Old Atlanta.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Zach Wallace, Atlanta native, son of a legendary entrepreneur in Atlanta. I am a former songwriter and producer, and now a restaurateur of the hottest vegan pescatarian restaurant in Atlanta, the Local Green.
Hey, what's up, beautiful people? My name is Bosco. I am a multimedia artist. I also am the founder of a POC Gen Z creative agency, Art Collective Slug Global. I am a culture pusher, a free thinker, and I just want to bring culture back to Atlanta, or continue to build culture in Atlanta.
So the room's small enough, I'm gonna try to project my voice so that y'all don't get the feedback. I'm John, I'm with Chekwa. I'm a storyteller. I'm not from here, but I've lived in the West End for the past 10 years. All right. Walter, yeah, that's my guy. Co-founder of Portrait Coffee, teaching pastor at Cornerstone Church, resident of the West End. Yeah.
So I am Chris Pilcher. I was born at Grady Hospital. I'm a creative technology artist, and I am the creative director of Underground Atlanta.
All right. So now that we have the introductions and the pleasantries out of the way, going back to this notion of Atlanta culture and really thinking about how we got here, given that she is the rights holder of Old Atlanta, Kirsten, talk about the need for the term Old Atlanta.
I started the brand in 2015, and it was pretty much out of a need of traveling and seeing how many transplants were in the city and how many people talk about Atlanta. Again, I work in music, so a lot of the people that I work with never actually visit Atlanta to see what it represents. They utilize our talent to push our message forward. But I see, what I'm noticing is that for as much as people move here, they don't understand the reason why they move here and what the infrastructure has been in order for them to come and be able to flourish in the way that they flourish. So Old Atlanta is just a nod to culture preservation. It's a way for us to acknowledge the things that were here prior to, you know, this great building of what we have going on right now. And also a lot of the entrepreneurial values that we've had here, the Black excellence that we've had here, and I say geographical reverence as well, because we acknowledge, you know, if we speak about Amaretta, she talks about what is and isn't Atlanta, but ultimately all parts, all neighboring parts of Atlanta have represented the true value of why we're able to sit here in this room today and, you know, coexist in a space of, again, having so many different values and beliefs in entrepreneurial systems that work together.
Zach and then Bame, when we talk about the infrastructure, or when Kirsten talks about the infrastructure, who are we talking about? Like, name some names, name some things, name some people Let's actually maybe even, you know, give some flowers to people who actually help build the foundation of what this thing is that we call culture, because we can talk about the infrastructure a lot, but what does that look like to you when we talk about the foundation of this?
Not to get too deep, but you know, in Southwest Atlanta, we had a skating rink, Jelly Beans, you know, and it was Stray Cats, people like that who were just everyday stars. You know, DJ Toomp, I think y'all know him. He was a big DJ, so you know, we had a certain culture. You know, it was booty shake music. You know what I'm saying? Where it was like, you know, a lot of y'all know that. You know, it was like yeeking and all that was going on, but we were really trying to find our voice. You know what I'm saying? So you had, you know, then what came from that place was the Dungeon family, and you know, my boy straight from the deck. What's their name? Ghetto Mafia. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? So you had people popping out with different joints, and it was like, you know, but it was a consciousness. You know what I'm saying? That really is the foundation, the cornerstone for Atlanta hip hop. Really, you know what I'm saying? On a major scale, and you know, I feel like, can y'all hear me? All right. Let me. Okay, you gonna cue it up a little bit?
These folks done did music.
Yeah. Aggressive engineers, man, in here. Yeah. All right, so you know, to shout them out, you know, I have to say, I mean, I'm biased. I'm gonna have to say, if I have one cornerstone, I gotta go with Dungeon Family, just because everything that happened globally from, you know, from the Dungeon, from Rico's radio store in East Point, you know what I'm saying, from Tri-Cities, from Mays High, from, you know, Southwest Atlanta, Curtis Mayfield Studio, you know, and you know, so that was I wish I could hear you. Okay, I hear you. But you know, you need that big boy card. We're gonna get you that big boy card. But you know, that's what we. It's so distracting.
So
that's where we are, man.
Okay, so I want to frame this up then for BAME, because I feel like going to this notion of Dungeon Family, right? Mm-hmm. 1995 Source Awards, Andre 3000 says, "The South got something to say." We've heard that many, many times over, but I feel like we are living in this time of between the two Andres, Andre 3000 and now Andre Dickens, the mayor. And so we have this time frame that we're living in that is currently expanding now. So when we talk about that infrastructure, not just hip hop, but just like the city, what is important in the city that we need to preserve or need to respect or at least need to acknowledge. BAME, what other things from your perspective when it comes to, you know, Atlanta influences everything, like what is that, and what does that influence come from to you, given this between two Andres sort of construct that we're in right now?
Pearl Clays, Radcliffe Bailey, Michael Lomax, Julian Bond, even Sharon Adams and Wade Burns and Thomas Cuffey, Marvin Arrington Sr., you know, some of the elders that, and there were certain things that happened post-Reconstruction where people started settling in Atlanta, you know, from Marthasville to when it became Terminus. But the bottom essence of like Morris Brown, like how so the AUC as a whole, you hear a lot about Morehouse and Spelman, but it was the Morris Brown kind of accepting of if you put forth the effort, you know what I'm saying, in Atlanta. If you put forth the effort, Morehouse and Spelman is like the W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington kind of debate. And Atlanta is both of those. They're both of those legends. They were both right and wrong at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And Atlanta Atlanta is a yes and city. It's not an either or. So it's a Grady baby city and it's a transient city. And without the two, understanding what each have brought to the to this long table that we at. So the native and the legends, they tilled the soil and they laid the wet concrete that, and I guess put the bat symbol in the sky that said, hey, come here, you know, during the Maynard era. And so a lot of transient, this is back and forth, but there was wet concrete and fertile soil to almost like the Wild West, like come build here. Yeah. You know, now did we know how much the megaphone reverberated out to the rest of America post the Olympics? I don't know if we knew that, but there was an effort to say, hey, you can build your thing here. And in the Maynard era, my last point I'll say to that is, unlike other cities that have strong black populations, like where the Panthers are from in Oakland, the mayor of Oakland never got a chance to take social services and welfare, and he never got a chance to make that as black as the Panthers were. You see what I'm saying? So like the blackness of the Panthers and the blackness of other cities, Baltimore, in those other cities, the mayor was never able to make that blackness law. Like it's a law to be black and it's protected. And so the Brazilian rainforest of Atlanta's blackness, where policy kind of protected the ability to be as black as you wanted to be here on all levels, allowed for a lot of this other stuff to happen at some point. So it's those elders that put forth policy work and private sector work to kind of lay the concrete for everything else to happen.
Thank you. So now that we have the foundation, I want to know what Atlanta feels like when you're out and about. So Bosco and I think DJ Lily Smalls, I want to get you all to talk about what Atlanta sounds like right now and like what you feel like Atlanta feels like when you're out in the world. So you, Bosco, when you're not in Atlanta and you're doing things elsewhere, but then Lily, like what's the sound of this space like right now? So Brittany.
Do I push this? Can y'all hear me? Yo, 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 yo. Hello. Is it working?
I think we heard that.
Okay, cool. So what does it feel like? What does it look like from the lens outside of Atlanta? So I moved here from LA right at the height of the pandemic. So from the outside looking in, I thought I was like, oh my God, I'm missing out. Atlanta's booming, and it's all of these different things that's going on. Like people are starting to do events and activations here. But what I have learned, just to kind of piggyback off of what you said about Atlanta, yes, you can build here, but can you sustain here? And what I mean by sustainability is resetting the market value. And what I mean by market value is, now that we have all of these eyes on Atlanta, not to old Atlanta, we have all of these brands, all of these companies, all of these agencies that are looking at Atlanta, but can we sustain here? Can we compete with LA? Can we compete with New York? Yes and no. The jobs that I say no to and the jobs that somebody else says yes to, we don't reset the market value there. So how can we scale our business? How can we grow our business? How can we get more accessibility? How can we diversify the market here? So that's what I think it looks like from the outside in. Now that moving back, I feel like there's a lot of growth and a lot of development and a lot of things that are happening, but it's truly not going to change, and the lens is not going to change until we reset the market value so that we can sustain and have better activations, better brands, and that we can fucking pay our mortgage.
Yes.
I hear you, girl.
I really agree, and I really feel that some of our cultural spaces, our authentic cultural spaces in Atlanta, they're dwindling post-pandemic. We lost Sound Table, we lost the Music Room, we lost the Graveyard, we lost El Bar, all these really great spaces for real Atlanta music, real DJs to come in and play what they wanted to, not what the managers wanted them to play. And people could come as they are and dance and twerk to everything. I feel like that Atlanta has a responsibility now to preserve these spaces, to preserve the spaces that we still have. We still have MJQ, which is on Ponce, which I believe is like the beloved community of the dance floor. You see black people, white people, Asian people, Latinos all twerking to the same beat. Is very beautiful. But we've got Atlanta as a city has to be I feel we've got to be very cognizant of how we're growing and who we're pushing out, and the consequence of what happens when we push out some of these spaces. Are we able to, how can we still congregate and be together and celebrate life, and not just for us folks that are over 21, but also the young people. Growing up, we had skating rinks and things like that, but I feel like those spaces too are also kind of dwindling, and we really, moving forward, Atlanta moving forward, we have to think about how we preserve that.
So as we have this final lap for this table, I saved these three folks for last because I think Kalundra, as a critic who is critically sort of assessing things in the world, Chris as a bit of a futurist who's thinking about many years ahead, and John, who is in many ways exporting culture out of Atlanta via Portrait Coffee. For each, the three of you, what do you want Atlanta to look like 100 years from now?
I'll start. So I think it's a good question that you asked that, because I think it's impossible to talk about what we want for the future without identifying how we want. I'm just going to talk loud. How we want people now to look and think through the past, right? So not being from here, sometimes when you got here, one of the hard things was asking people not just what things were, but why things were the way they are. You couldn't get any straight answers, right? So it's like the old Chinese proverb. If you want to know what water is, don't ask a fish, because they just are in it. So then you come in and you find out and you ask, how come when I get on MARTA at College Park, it looks like Wakanda, and by the time I get to North Springs, it looks like Switzerland? Why is that the case? Well, then you sit back and you have to say geography's not an accident. Things didn't just come to be this way. And if we don't learn, and if we don't have a group of people in Atlanta that are storytellers and ardent historians, then 100 years from now, things are going to look exactly the same way that they are now, because nobody knows how it got to be this way. So for me, I think more than what things look like then, I'm concerned with what the people are like then. In 100 years from now, I hope that we would have a community of people in the room where everybody can agree and recount the same story as if we was all getting into trouble and try to get our story straight, right? That's what I think that we need.
No, I completely agree with you. We can't predict what our future is going to be if we don't know our past and we don't know where we're at right now.
Right.
And being able to tell that story, like that narrative of like who is Atlanta, that's up to the culture creators, people who are sitting here at this table, people that are here in this room. So the only way we can build like this this greater, more utopian vision that we all have. Like everybody that's here wants to build something. Everybody that's here wants to build something better for the future, right? Better for the people that come after us. The only way we can do that is to support the people who tell the story, who hold the memories, and to support those people, we got to give them the bag. Like, there's so much money moving around Atlanta right now, and that money needs to go into the pockets of the people that will use it for the right things. So that's what I think.
But knowing where to find that.
And knowing where to find it. Opening up the resources for people. Like, I mean, Bosco, you travel the world doing your art. You do great. Ben, I know you're like amazing. I make money from my art. Like, it took me a long time to learn that. I grew up in Tri-Cities, poor as shit. But I'm doing great now. And it was because I had people to guide me along the way and show me where those resources were. So.
Yeah, I think that part of the reason why there's so much cultural interest in Atlanta right now is because Atlanta is a place that looks like what the future of America looks like, which is that this is going to be I believe it already is a global majority country, and they just don't count the census, right? But, you know, whatever. So anyway, I think that Atlanta has been a place of possibility and a beacon for people of color for a very long time. And what I would like to see for the future of Atlanta is that it continues to be a place of possibility for people of color. Because what we're seeing right now is that people of color are being pushed out of the city, and they're being pushed out of not just city of Atlanta proper, but also the state. We are losing creatives that we are pouring resources into in their early careers to other cities because they cannot sustain here, because the salaries, as you were talking about that market rate, the rate that things are going for is they're not able to stay. Even me as a writer, most of my bylines do not come out of Atlanta. Most of the publications I write for right now are out of New York City.
Absolutely.
So we have to figure out, how does this city support the creatives that have drawn the business here to begin with? And we must hold on to our civil rights history, because we cannot, it blows my mind that people move to Atlanta and don't know what Rich's was, and don't know that there were people who sat at lunch counters at Rich's in downtown Atlanta so that we could all sit in this room right now. So I think that we have to get really, really loud about our civil rights history, and I think we cannot separate our civil rights history from our hip-hop culture, which we try to do a lot. And we have to understand that if hip-hop is the voice of the marginalized and civil rights is for the marginalized, those things have to be married, and they can't be separated from business, and we can't put respectability politics on it and try to say, oh, this group of people can be in the city and this group of people can't be, because we like the way what they do looks and we don't like the way this looks, because it's all Atlanta. So in short, the Atlanta I want to see in the future is that it continues to be a place of possibility, because right now what I'm seeing is that I have friends who have literally moved to Nashville, to Austin, to LA, who this city has poured into, and they're taking their talents elsewhere, and I want us to be able to hold on to our talent.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone at this table, the foundational company. Thank y'all. anything that really resonated with you, I want you all to think about that and bring that to the conversation now, just to be able to sort of, you know, synergize that. But what we heard a lot in that first conversation was, we don't want this to be a place where the folks who help make this place cannot stay in this place. And so if we can start there and then iterate a little bit on the conversation, what type of accountability do we need to try to foster to make that more of a reality? Speak on it. Please say your name. Please say your name and a one-sentence bio.
Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Say it with your chest.
My name is Spree Wilson. I am a singer, songwriter, filmmaker, producer. I'm a singer, songwriter, producer out of Atlanta, Georgia. I like to talk about, you know, what some of the panelists was talking about as far as moving to other places. That's always been a problem in Atlanta since I've been here. People work their ass off in the city and they get no support. That's the problem. Like, people in Atlanta only support when something is hot somewhere else. That's always been an issue. My best friend Bosco sat up here and talked about the issues of getting support from the city. She had to go to LA. She had to go to New York. I had to move from Atlanta, Georgia, and get signed to another label, and all of a sudden, written in the papers here, talked about. It's like, you're a national treasure. I think the problem is nobody ever sees the value of your product or whatever you're doing when you're here. It's only when somebody from another city that's bigger validates you, and it's like, oh yeah, well, this person's from Atlanta. All of a sudden, they want you to support Atlanta, Georgia. So I think one of the things we need to do is support the people who are here, support the people who are trying to push the city forward, support the people who have innovative ideas, who have new ideas, and I think that's the way in which the city moves forward. I think like trying to like recapture the past is a mistake. I think there are a lot of young people here that have amazing ideas and that they're trying to implement in the city, and I think a lot of people are gatekeepers, and they're trying to make Atlanta what it was in the 94, 95, 96 Freaknik era. We don't live in that era no more. It's 2022. Like, let's build a new city for a new generation so that the people who come behind us have something to look forward to, have something to build upon, as opposed to building upon old ideas.
Any responses?
That's it.
So with that being said, talking about resources, talking about support, what does support look like in terms of who are we asking for support from? Are we talking about city council? Are we talking about the mayor? Are we talking about the governor? Are we talking about who? Are we talking about neighbors? Who are we talking about?
Well, the first question is, who makes the decisions? Because like we're sitting here giving ideas, but like who can actually make the changes? You know what I'm saying? Like we can toss around ideas
Who can
at the table.
in the room?
I'm talking about like today, if we say like, yo, we want to build a building that's strictly for creatives. They can come here, they don't have to pay anything. We can teach them how to make films, we can teach them how to make music, we can teach them like agriculture, we can teach them finance. Who can say, okay, cool, I can write you a check right now and build this. I can get all the laws passed, I can get all the clearances passed for everything. Like, who can do that?
Right.
We can talk here and we can sit here and talk about ideas all day long, but like, what happens when we leave this place? This is going to be the same thing.
Right, and also have it not be connected to a tech company. Like, tech companies are getting a whole bunch of money right now, and it's like, but who actually fuels the tech? It's human beings, it's us, it's the culture creators. But are we getting the funding? No, we're not. We need that money, and we also need the infrastructure to support our ideas and our creativity to keep the city going. Sorry, my name's Nakia Phoenix. Sorry, co-creator of the Hey Brown Girl mural in Castleberry Hill. Boom. And also a commercial actress. Wellness creative. Boom. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the ideas in the city
Anyone
aren't
hold
the
on?
problem.
Anyone else at the table want to respond or add to what we just heard?
Don't look a day over 21.
can't hear me.
Jack. Just let it go. This is no mic table. No mic table.
My name is Sharon. I'm from Brooklyn. I'll try to enunciate as much as possible, project rather. Okay, so I'm a big believer in working smart and not hard, honestly. And so I find that trying to reinvent the wheel sometimes has us kind of spinning our wheels and trying to just burn off a lot of energy unnecessarily. And so I think it's important to look at examples of what we want actually being implemented. So I was in Macon for the first and only time a few months ago. Actually had a great time, so it's no shade to Macon. It's just that I'm from New York, so I came to Atlanta. I kind of stayed in Atlanta and its vicinity. But Macon really shocked me because I didn't realize how much they were investing in their arts infrastructure. So they have 2 developments that are being created in partnership with the city of Macon, along with private entities. Don't know the details, but it was enough to have me say, I wonder if Atlanta could have something of that sort. So I would highly encourage anyone who's serious about seeing something like this take place in Atlanta, talk to the people who are actually doing it, who are actually implementing it, and get the keys from them and just, do it here and elsewhere.
Yeah, and I just want to add on, my name is Aniyam. I'm the Executive Program Director for Youth Aiding Humanity Incorporated. We're an educational nonprofit organization. And one thing I'd like to add on to the conversation is just the idea that this old saying that the world is a book and those that don't travel only read one page. And then another sad part of it is most people don't even read the whole page that they're on. Like they don't even maximize the benefits of where they're at. But when we talk about people leaving Atlanta, we can't frame it like it's an entirely negative issue. Because people are also leaving other places to come here because that's what humans do. Every species does that. You don't just stay in one place forever. And so if somebody realizes there's a great opportunity in New York or London or China or Brazil or Ghana or the Congo, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So we got to kind of separate the issues because when we don't do that, especially when the older generation tries to tell young people to stay in the same area, when we see a whole world out here, as digital natives growing up, social media generation, we get to see places and lands and cultures. I've been to South Africa and Kenya and Egypt and Israel. I just got back from Belize. And when you see the rest of the world, you might realize, Atlanta was nice, but then there's other opportunities in other places. And when we don't try to cultivate a global perspective, we actually are discontinuing an important part of the tradition of Atlanta. W.B. Du Bois died in Ghana. He didn't stay here. Dr. Martin Luther King traveled for Kwame Nkrumah's inauguration in Ghana, West Africa. You get all the mayor, Ambassador Andrew Young was Atlanta's former mayor and the United States ambassador to the United Nations. So Atlanta has a rich cultural tradition of being a global city. And it's a global city that has more connections to Africa than many other global cities. So by restricting our mentality to just saying we're trying to maintain the local economy, that's important when we're talking about the creative arts, we're talking about supporting local restaurants and entrepreneurs and things of that nature. But some people think outside of that box, and it's important not to demonize them because they're looking to expand from local to regional to national to international in their creative pursuits. So I just want to throw that out there to balance out the conversation.
Yes. So
speak loud.
My name is Austin. Some of you know me by the human record player. I art curator. So even the second on what you're saying, it's like the BET perspective. We don't necessarily need BET to have Black excellence being exposed locally. It's the same thing with Atlanta. During the pandemic, I realized a lot of things of that particular perspective. I moved out to the mountains in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and a lot of my network of people that I worked with locally, I still had connects with, but it took away a lot of the distractions that I had at home. So sometimes that going away for a lot of people could take away a lot of the distractions and create a focus. But I think that that's a good thing, too, to always have that network of people that you've had here. And I think that should be really the focus, is building that network of people locally in the idea of whatever you're trying to achieve.
I get what you all are saying as far as traveling and wanting to leave, but people are literally being displaced. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people going. I can get my passport and go somewhere, but you literally cannot afford to live here. That's a difference.
Because we just got to separate and make sure we keep those categories different so that everybody who leaves isn't lumped in the same way as when they find out.
But sometimes it is the same, and we can't discount that. I threaten to leave Atlanta all the time to go back to LA for better opportunities because I'm like, yo, wait, Atlanta prices for housing right now are it's like New York or LA. Yo, I should just be in New York or LA where there are more opportunities for me and where there's an infrastructure that genuinely supports a creative class. So it is literally on the Venn diagram. It's in the center.
I feel like somebody else earlier said Atlanta's a yes and not an either or. You know, so we can say, yes, this is one aspect of the issue, this is another aspect of the issue. We deal with them each as they require to be.
As we wrap up, we have two people at the table who have not spoken. Add to the conversation, say something, add something, give your perspective. We will start with right here.
My name is Selena, and since I feel like my voice carries pretty well. I moved here about 8 years ago now from the West Coast. I grew up in LA. I lived in Portland, Oregon. I lived in Seattle, Washington. And every one of those cities that I lived in, I witnessed in real time gentrification happen in every single one of those cities. I grew up in LA in the 80s during the crack era. So from that, the pre-crack era to afterwards, obviously was such a huge difference, and it was night and day from before and after. And then moving to other cities and witnessing the same thing, coming here, I feel like I even witnessed that here because even 7-8 years ago, I started doing photography I like to call it like urban decay. And almost all of the pictures that I've taken there, they don't look like that anymore. They're totally redeveloped, they're totally something else now. And even speaking in my regular work duties to hundreds of different people, mostly men because I work in warehouse mostly. I speak to them and ask them like about the history of Atlanta. Even an older gentleman, he's passed away now, rest in peace, but he was an older gentleman and told me a lot about Eastern Georgia, which I did a lot of research before I came, but you know, he's talking about his work and not even being able to come into the front door and do stuff. Just every, regular stuff, but like a lot of the young people, and I've done mentorship for a lot of young people, gang-related young people on the West Coast, and I feel like the youth is where a lot of the focus should be. They need programs, they need resources. All of the youth have something they're passionate about, and if they're not being catered to, then what are they doing? They're off doing other stuff. But I say that to say, in asking even the older generation, from young to older generations, there's people who, because when I first moved here, I moved to East Point. So I lived over there off of Stanton Road. A lot of those guys haven't even been to this side of town, haven't even been past certain borders. They'll say, hey, even the older gentlemen, we knew when we were younger, we couldn't cross this area. We can't go over here. And it's still kind of like that today. It's very segregated what you get. Certain parts of the city, they don't go other places. So I think that having people like this, creative people here, to reach out to those people, to let them know your world is a lot bigger than the block you grew up in, the neighborhood you grew up in. That says a lot. Mentorship lets them know, like, there's other people. Whatever it is you like to do, that's what brought me to Atlanta. I can say from an outsider's perspective that looking at Atlanta from an outsider's perspective, you can say it's great because there's so many people of color there doing whatever it is you love to do. There's a group there who can do the same thing that are not all white, or, I can say that because I live in Oregon. Go outside, it's nothing but all white. You see white people everywhere. It's like, where are the people? You can have more than one function because there's not enough people of color that have that more than one function. So that's why Atlanta is so important, because you can have all these different creatives in different areas who do stuff that you love to do and can flourish. And move to other cities if they so choose. Move to other countries if they so choose. And that's what's important, because that's what brings people to Atlanta. Most people I meet here are not even from here. Including myself. So.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Marina Sky. I'm an art director and a set designer here in Atlanta. I'm also from LA, born and raised. I came here to attend Clark Atlanta University and just fell in love with this city, and I have not left. I've gone to other places to work, but I feel that this city has adopted me and has allowed me to become the woman that I am now. I've been quiet because I'm internally battling the LA native and the Southern resident in one person. And I think, to your point, I think you brought up a very interesting point about being able to feel comfortable traveling and experiencing. But I think the most important thing is to come back. I think that there are a lot of instances where people do come, they go elsewhere and then they seek amazing and beautiful prosperity, but then they stay and they get comfortable where they're at. And that's great, but example, I have some good friends that started a record label, LBRN. LBRN is a record label that started in Atlanta. They're all Atlanta natives. They have Atlanta artists. They have grown tremendously. Billboard, like literally they are an amazing record label. They have offices in LA, offices in New York, but their home base is Atlanta. And I think there's something very special about being able to take these experiences that you have, travel elsewhere, but then also bring everything, your resources back to this city. To your point, there are so many transplants that come to Atlanta, us included, that come here and seemingly use the resources, but then people leave and never come back. I think it's important for us, if we have responsibilities as people that live in this city, as people who have grown in this city, who have experienced in this city, to leave, take things, and then bring it back to this community, because there are people that look up to us, no matter what areas of whatever we're in, creative, tech, business, whatever. There are people that you could touch and heal with your experiences. So making sure that we are taking our experiences from the world, bringing it back to the city, and then figuring out ways to kind of uplift our youth and the people that are not even the youth, because there are people that are shadowing you that are your age that you don't even know look up to you. And I learned that in my experiences, and I think it's just important to make sure that we just come back and bring back to the city.
I have a question.
Right.
I just want to know, out of this table, who's sitting here right now, who's an Atlanta native?
One.
And
that note.
Wait. And everybody who's an Atlanta native in the room, raise your hand.
And on that note, we were going to shift. If you have 3,000 on your card, we have one last question for the folks at the table. We're going to make this brief but very impactful. If you have 3,000 on your card, please come to the table, and we're going to wrap after this. All right. So, given what we've all heard and talked about amongst ourselves and in our own heads, as we think about Atlanta as this place that we say is full, but not really, because people keep coming anyway. So, given that we are not as full as we think, and that the values of this city are going to shift and change as the people in this city shift and change, and the identity is going to shift and change. All of the things that we heard at the very beginning will look very different many generations from now. For the folks at this table now, this one question is, how do we manage that change? How do we manage the change of the past and the plants and the natives? How do we manage it? That's one question. Everyone to give an answer to that one question, and then that will conclude this conversation. But do please say your name and that once in his bio. So,
my name is visionary filmmaker Savanzel, a technology storyteller. I've been coming to Atlanta for about 35 years from Duval, Jacksonville, Florida. And I think my first time coming to Atlanta, it was all about leaving Jacksonville to come to Atlanta. A lot of transplants come here and they leave with problems. I was one of the youth that left the city to come to Atlanta to get away from the trouble in Florida. Now I tell stories with Amazon. I work with Google, Afrotech, and all of these big tech companies. I tell stories on tech. And I do think that the problems in Atlanta will get worse because equality in Atlanta is so far. Like, we're going to see Microsoft and Google and all these big companies similar to in San Francisco, but we're going to see the youth and the young people in Atlanta not make money. So the world, that this gap that we see in San Francisco, this gap that we see around the country, we're going to see that same gap in Atlanta. And I don't know who have the problems. I mean, I don't know who can fix that problem, but we are seeing it reflected in the violence in Atlanta as well. If we look at the streets in Atlanta, like we can look on with Young Thug and everything we see in the streets, it's a lot of violence going on in this city that we don't talk about. So I think the further the equality gap financially of Atlanta, I'm in a bubble. I'm living in a bubble. I come here, I'm only at the Gathering Spot. I'm only at Kid Labs. I'm only at the Russell Center for Innovation. I'm not in the city of Atlanta for real. So a lot of us are living in a bubble in Atlanta, and it's people from Atlanta for real that's in the streets out there that's starving, they're robbing, they're in the streets. They don't have the money, they're not looking like us, they're not in this room. So I think the problems will get worse in Atlanta.
Hey, I'm Chantal Stepney. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. All right, well, Chantal Stepney, I'm a local Atlanta native, grade now Midtown High is where I went to high school. I'm a business tech consultant, lover of the idea of intersection of culture, and piggybacking off of what you said, and to answer your question about values. I think we need to think about going back to this, what is culture, what are values, and what are the values of Atlanta? The owners of the culture we've been talking about all night, they were humble, or are, hopefully still are, humble, salt of the earth people. When we talk about Andre, when we talk about Big Boy, when we talk about the high schools and the names of our high schools and who they're named after, when we're talking about some of our former mayors, our civil rights leaders, some of the entrepreneurs, you know, Herman Russell, right? And all the ones that we think about that formed the idea of Atlanta now, these folks were salt of the earth folks. You know, even if they may have had means, even as they came up, right, the folks that we're talking about, the folks who perpetuated 100 black men, 100 black women, right, and all of the organizations that have poured into what we define as Atlanta and the culture of Atlanta, these were humble, hungry, smart folk. Those were folks who also were trying to say, hey, climb as I climb, right? But I don't see them in this room. The folks that you're talking about, right, the Atlanta that we don't necessarily tap into, they're not in this room. They're not getting credit for also owning and perpetuating the culture of Atlanta. The folks who back in the day went to Walters downtown, right, who had the sneakers culture and the game on lock there, right? Those were folks who were riding MARTA, who were living downtown, who were living in Southeast Atlanta, Southwest Atlanta. But we don't see them at this table, and we don't see them in the rooms when we speak about culture. So to wrap up what the point I'm trying to make, I think that in terms of how do we fix it, we have to forge forward, but we also have to go back to think about what did our predecessors do to bring and invite multiple perspectives to the table, to give credit where credit is due, from the streets to Microsoft, Google, and everywhere in between, and continue to have those conversations and make sure that we are leaving room for everyone to be here and to speak the truth about the culture of Atlanta. Otherwise, we will have a one-sided situation, and the equality or lack thereof that you spoke of, that problem will continue to manifest.
Hey everyone, my name is Kayma J. I am a rapper and a techie. I say that because I literally done it all from developing. Now I manage technical projects. I'm actually from New York, so I have a little different perspective. I'm just visiting here, but to answer your question, I feel like to keep the culture in Atlanta, I literally feel like you guys are doing it just by being here, by being community-based. I feel like Atlanta natives have a pride in the culture and the the history that is here, and to continue to do that and to tell your story, and so that you have that strong foundation that you have, and just keep pushing it. So to keep it short, I feel like you guys are doing it, and yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Makisha Funderburg. I am a professor at Clark Atlanta University. I've also taught at Morehouse and Morris Brown, so haven't cracked the code to Spelman yet. But since I work around young people and specifically around creatives like photographers, videographers, and all those things, I think the term of fixing, I think, you know, those of us who are creatives and are successful in our own right, I think creating mentorship and training programs for those younger creators, because they can be creative all day, but they may not know how to monetize. And I definitely agree with the last group of people that sat here, and someone mentioned something of you have to go away to become something, just to come back to Atlanta to be successful. And I find that to be a problem, because we have so much talent here, there's so much business, and you know, a lot of, especially people, black and brown people, may create the culture in Atlanta, but a lot of us are not owners of it. So I just say, you know, those of us who know what to do, you know, create those programs and not just have conversations, but show how do I apply this knowledge that you're speaking of. And that's it.
Hey, my name is Fabian Williams, also an artist. Somebody cut my mic down? Dang. So I say the way we maintain, or really develop the culture further, is apply the pressure to the various power structures that benefit from the culture that we create. So I've been saying this for a while. Artists create the culture. The culture tells people what to do. Creates the value system. It creates what we hold dear, what's cool, what's not, what's whack, what's great, and artists are the ones that dictate that. There's a reason why they pay, you know, millions of dollars to advertising and marketing agencies, because they're full of artists, commercial artists. The commercial artists create campaigns to influence you to buy shit that you don't need. So creative people do that anyway. That's what we do. So when you create art, you're basically programming people to do what you tell them to do. Hip hop is one of the main influences that come out of Atlanta. Who controls hip hop? I don't think it's black people. Right. So if those people that create the culture decide amongst themselves that we're gonna talk about this, and we say this is valuable and this is not, what you think people gonna do? Reason why I'm a muralist right now, but my art takes whatever form necessary to create, you know, carry the idea. So if I gotta tap dance, if I gotta sing it, if I gotta create a play, I'm gonna do it because that's what the idea calls for. And really what I'm doing is just programming the value system for people to consume in a creative form. Artists are all powerful, but I don't think they know it, but now you do.
I'm Janae Whitaker. I'm a professional counselor with a background in STEM and divinity as well. So Jesus, essentially. And so as I've been listening to, I guess, the 3, 2.5, I guess, round, like long tables so far, and for me, it's almost like to answer your question, to answer this future forward question, it takes me conceptualizing the problem correctly. And as I'm listening, it's like the diversity, the intersectionality, all the options that are available to people of color, to people here in Atlanta, that it's, you go other places and it's like, for instance, blackness may look a particular way. It has this limit. In Atlanta, it's so diverse, but I think that's what makes it so challenging, is because when you have so many intersections, brain-wise, we want to put things into boxes. It makes it harder for us to do that, and therefore harder for us to figure out, like, what does it look like to go forward, because there's so many different options, there's so many things we're having to consider. And I think, and this is where the STEM knowledge comes in, this idea of allostasis, of creating stability through change. It's what we do in our body when we get a fever, right? It's like, I'm gonna change from 98.6 to 103 so that we can get some stability and fix this, right? Like, it changes the set point. And I think in some ways you have to zoom out. I think that's part of what's gonna create kind of this movement going forward. And I think that incorporates like the storytelling of knowing what our shared values are, knowing what we want our legacy to be. I think one of the people on the panel was talking about that is culture our biggest export, or is it our civil legacy, our social legacy, right? And so getting this idea of what is our set point, what is the overall goal we're trying to achieve, because I think that's how you manage diversity. That's how you manage all the different ways that Atlanta culture shows up, all the different ways blackness shows up, is this sense of like, what's the larger goal? You know, it's how any good team works. I'm a soccer player as well, and it's like, you have people that look all different shapes. It's a very fluid sport, but it's like when you have that end goal of like, we're trying to win the game, we're trying to win this championship, we're trying to do this tactic with this against this team, you can bring all the different talents, all the different positions together more easily because we know what we're looking at all together. And so I think it's like being appreciative of the diversity that we have here in Atlanta and all the intersections, and it's complicated, it's hard to hold all those things together. But I think for us, using the stories, using the values, using our history to get a sense of, okay, this is what we're after. Like this is our core value. This is the aim. Makes it so much easier for us to each figure out how our unique blackness, our unique experience of Atlanta, all the imports, how they factor into getting us to that point.
Hello everyone, my name is James Bing, aka Soul Cool J. So I'm a transplant from Florida, South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, but I'm a underground music tastemaker here in Atlanta and an underground scene kind of enthusiast. The way we manage change is we have to have transformative tradition, and we have to do it through innovative history. And the reason I say that is this: if we look at some African cultures, regardless, no matter how many generations pass, they always find a few young people to tell all the stories of the history of that culture, and it's for them to carry that until they get to a certain age, and then they find people in that generation to tell those stories, and then they continue to do that and do that. That's how you have transformative history and traditions, because regardless of how we move and innovate, you always find someone who knows the stories. And the way we manage to change is we continue to tell the story of Atlanta. We never stop telling that story. If you continue to do that, but if you have so many people who come in and infiltrate and don't know the story, then at some point the story stops being told. And if that story stops being told, now no one knows what Atlanta was, and then we don't be able to manage that change. So we have to continue to do that, and we do that by using whatever the present day platform is to tell that story. Fabian had a panel earlier talking about how now use NFTs to be able to create that art and spread that art so that I can now do what I need to do and continue to tell that story. We can't allow ourselves to be stuck in the mediums of the time. We always have to be able to, whatever that time presents us, make sure we transform our history and that story into that medium so that the people of that generation can learn that history and understand that story. And then when they have a new medium that's created with them, they can do the same thing and continue to tell that story.
Yeah, man. My name is Nick Mulkey. I'm from South Georgia, particularly Albany. And so I have a small Georgia boy, country boy perspective on Atlanta. I am a community developer by day, a screenwriter by night. And so when I first got here, I guess I'll start over. When you speak about managing change, I think the first thing is to understand where Atlanta's headed and understand like what its full potential is. Atlanta for so long, I feel like, has had an inferiority complex to its larger brothers of New York and LA and Philly and these guys, and tried to reach to be these places before it physically was there. You know, so we was trying to compare ourselves to these places before Midtown even was anything like it is today. It was empty for the most part. And so first and foremost, as far as like keeping that legacy and ensuring that we don't lose that history, we have to build a city in which that history and that legacy can be experienced through walkability, through connection, through a dense space where people can experience it on the daily versus just hear from it from a class or history. The institutions that we are creating now and the organizations that we are creating will help to keep that legacy going. That looks like the Sweet Auburn African American History Museum. That looks like Cohen Park. That looks like ensuring that all of these individuals and these organizations that have made such a serious impact on Atlanta's legacy is built into the system. It's built into, you know, our street names. It's built into our places. And over time, these institutions will reverberate that history throughout the next generations. We must understand that change will happen, but not to be afraid of it, because Atlanta's maturity and where it is entering now is taking it to different heights. Atlanta's probably the most foremost global black city on the planet. I can't think of another one, and that's important. And that legacy alone will continue to move us forward and will continue to have us to look back at our civil rights legacy and these different legacies that have built the city and keep that legacy strong. So I think as far as managing change, understand that change will come, understanding that if we can embed our history into organizations, institutions, and some of the political framework that we have, we can save the soul of Atlanta while also moving to the future of Atlanta.
Yeah, that's for that. That's a great last point to end on. Thank you all for staying with us and being part of this conversation, both actively and in the audience. And I will not hold y'all any longer. I think there's some partying to be done over in the dance floor in the center room. I believe that is the space, correct? Yes? Okay. Well, yes, this now brings this conversation to an end. Thank you all for attending Night of Ideas, and God bless. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.